The forest called to me, always. The scent of pine, the rustle of leaves, a siren song to my adventurous soul. My friends, though, needed convincing. John preferred history books, Sarah sought cityscapes, and Emily loved home comforts. This year, I was determined. No more city parks or crowded campsites. I yearned for the untamed, the unknown. Finally, after weeks of persuasion, my friends relented. They agreed to venture into Blackwood Forest, rumored to hold secrets best left undisturbed. Our excitement was palpable as we packed the car, our laughter echoing in the crisp morning air. We had maps, supplies, and a healthy dose of youthful bravado. Surely the stories surrounding Blackwood Forest were just that. Stories. As we drove deeper into the heart of the forest, the sunlight began to falter. The trees, towering sentinels guarding ancient secrets, pressed closer to the road, creating an unnatural twilight. We had crossed the threshold into a different realm, a place untouched by time. The ranger station, nestled at the forest's edge, stood weathered and worn. Inside, a lone ranger eyed us with a mixture of amusement and concern. He spoke of unpredictable weather, treacherous terrain, and the importance of staying on the marked trails. And then, his voice dropping to a low murmur, he mentioned the whispers. "The forest," he said, "has a way of speaking to you. Listen, but don't believe everything you hear." His words seemed to hang in the air long after we left, a cryptic warning we couldn't shake off. Undeterred, we shouldered our packs and set off into the woods. The trail was narrow and overgrown, the air thick with the smell of damp earth and pine needles. The sunlight, filtering through the dense canopy, cast long dancing shadows that seemed to writhe and twist like living things. As the day wore on, the forest grew quiet. The cheerful chatter of birds was replaced by an unnerving silence. We discovered a clearing, perfect for our campsite, with an old fire pit ringed by stones etched with strange symbols. Night descended upon the forest like a shroud, smothering the last vestiges of daylight. We huddled around our campfire, the flames casting flickering shadows that transformed our faces into grotesque caricatures. The wind picked up, whistling through the trees, carrying a low, mournful howl. John began to tell ghost stories, his voice thin and reedy in the stillness. Sarah huddled closer to Emily, her eyes wide and fixed on the darkness. Even Emily, usually the bravest, seemed ill at ease. As the night wore on, the strange occurrences began. Whispers seemed to emanate from the undergrowth, soft at first, then growing louder, more insistent. They seemed to circle our campsite, taunting us, mocking our fear. John dismissed them as our imaginations running wild, but I wasn't so sure. Then the drumming started, a low rhythmic thumping that seemed to vibrate from the very earth itself. We froze, our blood turning to ice in our veins as the drumming grew louder, more insistent. Terror, raw and primal, seized us. The drumming intensified, reverberating through the forest floor, shaking the very air we breathed. Our campfire sputtered and died, plunging us into an impenetrable darkness. I could hear my friends' ragged breathing, feel their terror in the trembling of their hands. Then we saw them. Luminous figures, tall and skeletal, their eyes glowing with an eerie, otherworldly light. They moved with an unnatural fluidity, gliding silently through the trees. The whispers intensified, becoming a chorus of voices chanting in an unknown tongue. We were surrounded. John scrambled for his flashlight, but the batteries were inexplicably dead. We were trapped, alone in the heart of the forest, at the mercy of these things. I reached for Sarah, her hand cold and clammy in mine. Emily began to cry. One of the figures, taller than the others, its eyes burning with a cold, malevolent intelligence, began to move towards us. We scrambled back, our hearts pounding in our chests. The figure paused, its head cocked to one side as if listening to a sound only it could hear. And then it turned, and with a speed that defied comprehension, vanished into the darkness. The drumming ceased as abruptly as it began, leaving behind a silence so profound that it seemed to press down on us. We were left in stunned silence, our bodies trembling with adrenaline and fear. We knew then that we had stumbled into something ancient, something dark and dangerous. Dawn, when it finally came, offered little comfort. It painted the forest in shades of gray, the trees looming over us like accusing giants. We were exhausted, physically and emotionally drained, but we knew we couldn't stay here. We had to get out, escape the oppressive presence that clung to this cursed place. We packed our gear with frantic haste, our movements clumsy and uncoordinated. The forest, once a source of wonder and excitement, now felt menacing. We moved like hunted animals, our senses on high alert. The once familiar trails seemed to twist and turn back on themselves, leading us further into the heart of the forest. We were hopelessly, terrifyingly lost. Just as despair threatened to consume us, we stumbled upon a faint flicker of hope. A thin wisp of smoke rose above the trees in the distance, a beacon of human presence in the vast, unforgiving wilderness. We surged forward, our exhaustion momentarily forgotten. The smoke led us to a small clearing. A crude lean-to stood nestled at the base of a towering oak. Seated by a crackling fire was an old woman. Her face was weathered and lined, her eyes as dark and deep as the forest itself. She watched our approach with a calm, appraising gaze. We approached cautiously, our voices hoarse from calling out, our bodies trembling from exhaustion and fear. The old woman, without a word, gestured for us to sit by the fire. She offered us water and dried meat. As we ate, she listened patiently as we recounted the horrors of the previous night. When we finished, she spoke, her voice a low, melodic murmur. This forest remembers. It remembers the old ways, the old rituals. The old woman, who introduced herself simply as Willow, became our guide and our savior. She moved through the forest with an uncanny grace, her footsteps silent on the forest floor. She spoke of the forest with a mixture of reverence and fear, explaining that it was a place of ancient power. She confirmed our suspicions that we had stumbled upon a place where ancient rituals were once performed. She warned us to speak little, to walk softly, and to avoid looking directly at the shadows. Willow led us through hidden paths, her knowledge of the forest as intricate and deep as the roots of the ancient trees. We followed her blindly, our trust in her growing with each step that took us further away from the heart of the darkness. She navigated by the stars, by the feel of the moss on the north side of the trees, by the subtle shifts in the wind. As we walked, she taught us about the forest, about its rhythms and its secrets. After what felt like an eternity, we emerged from the forest. The sight of the ranger station, bathed in the warm glow of the setting sun, filled us with a wave of relief. We had escaped the clutches of the forest, but we knew we would never be the same. Willow embraced each of us in turn. "You have looked into the heart of the unknown," she said. "Carry that knowledge with you, but let it be a lesson, not a burden." And then, with a final nod, she turned and melted back into the trees. We returned to our lives, but the forest lingered. It lingered in our dreams, in the shadows at the edge of our vision, in the sudden silences that seemed to hold whispered echoes of ancient chants. We were forever marked by our encounter with the unknown. John now devoured books on folklore and mythology, searching for explanations. Sarah filled her canvases with haunting landscapes and shadowy figures, her art a reflection of the darkness she had glimpsed. We adventured into the heart of Blackwood Forest seeking adventure, a brief escape from the mundane realities of our lives. We found something far greater and far more terrifying than we could have ever imagined. We found a place where the boundaries between this world and the next blurred, a place where ancient powers still held sway. We emerged from the forest forever changed, marked by our encounter with the unknown. We carried the scars, both visible and invisible, as a testament to the power of the wilderness. The forest, for all its beauty and tranquility, holds secrets best left undisturbed. Heed the whispers of the wind, the warnings etched in the bark of ancient trees. There are paths meant only for those who understand the language of the wild. Enter at your own peril, but be warned, the forest remembers.